good morning to everyone, those who are watching us at home, and also just to thank the members of the media for always making time to facilitate this conversation with the general public. So we are eternally grateful for the media to make it possible for us to communicate with the rest of the country on matters of national importance. And also just to acknowledge the leadership of ESCOM, led by the Group Chief Executive, Mr. Den Marokani. Thank you very much for joining us. So we have, as it is customary, occasion this media briefing for us to be able to take the country through the performance of the grid during this winter period. Of course, in our computation, our winter, we calculated, if you like, from the 1st of April to the 31st of August, of course, May to August rather, just to give you a sense of how the grid is performing. This is important because we have committed ourselves to transparency, accountability, and ensuring that we are able to share with the general public, our customers, and the industry the performance of the grid, so that there's some degree of appreciation on what to expect going forward. Of course, at the end of the winter period, we'll then provide a summer outlook, which will cover the remainder of the year, just on the anticipated performance of the grid, so that we continue to give assurance to the rest of the country on the work that we are doing. So I'm happy to say that we are in good space. When we announced the winter plan, we did indicate that if the breakdowns, what we call in the technical language, the unplanned capacity load factor, the breakdowns exceed 13,000 megawatts, then we think that we might be in a serious problem. And serious problem in this instance means that we might have to initiate load shedding. And depending on the amount of megawatts above the threshold of 13,000, we might have to initiate particular levels of load shedding. So we shared that to the country, but we also said the following when we announced the summer plan. We said that we are confident that we are going into this winter with a system that is relatively stronger compared to what was the situation in 2023, and also we're expecting a number of units to come into play during the winter period. We did make reference to the fact that we now have in our AMA Kusile unit number 6, and we also indicated that we do expect that during the winter period we will have the benefit of Medupi unit number 4. And all of those things have come into fruition, and that has made it possible for us to say to the country that we have not registered load shedding. And of course, we are anticipating that going into the remaining of the winter and then transitioning into summer, we really don't expect any major surprises in relation to the performance of the grid. Of course, this is a dynamic system. These are rotating units. There could be challenges here and there, and I'll share with you how we're able to address those challenges as and when they appear, because the grid is designed in such a manner that we can call on what we call the peaking plants to help us to sustain the performance of the grid without relying on load shedding, to ensure that we protect the South African economy. So really, that's the function of the peakers. They are meant to, if you like, is a card we have when we are in major challenges. Then we are able to play that card so that we were able to keep the lights on. And I'm happy to also indicate that our modeling was, of course, we had made the point that if the losses are 13,000 and below, we should not have load shedding. And I must say that they were doing substantially better than that. Substantially better than that, because we are beginning to see that the system is stable, is resilient, is becoming more and more reliable as we move forward. I mean, just to give you a sense that the unplanned outages of the generation units, they averaged about 10,880 over the past 7 days. And we have seen even going below 10,000 megawatts, breaching the 9,000 megawatts point. So that's important because we did say if it goes above 13,000 megawatts of losses, we might have to initiate load shedding. We're substantially lower than that. And I really want to congratulate Dan and the rest of the team, the 42,000 plus men and women at ESCOM, for being able to keep their shoulder to the wheel, transfixed on the resolution of what is essentially an existential challenge that continues to face the country, but we are more than confident that we are getting out of the woods. What is this? The EAF, the average EAF, when we aggregate all of the units put together, the EAF for the period the 1st of April to the 8th of August was sitting at 60.14%. And of course, this is a major progress that we are making. And if you look at what the performance was, if we were to go back 2023, when we initiated these interventions, we're substantially lower than this amount. So I think it's important that there's a greater level of appreciation. We're coming from the lows of about 49%, and thanks to the men and women at ESCOM, we're making that tremendous progress. But when we take it closer, remember I'm averaging it since the beginning of the financial year, the 1st of April to the 8th of August. What has been the performance in the recent past? So recent past, really, I'm talking about the 14 days or so. We say that the EAF is in fact continuing to give us, if you like, spectacular results. That at some point we even breached the 70% mark in relation to performance of EAF. This is significant. It's a psychological mark. Remember that the shareholder, as part of the shareholder compact, so this is an agreement between government represented by the Minister of Energy, that is myself, the agreement we enter with the ESCOM board. We have said that for the current financial year, we want to get the EAF to about 70%. And we're beginning to see these green shoots. Green shoots in this instance, the team has illustrated that it's possible for us to achieve that 70% EAF. And then we have breached it in that period. What is the average month to date? What is it that we have performed over this period? We're sitting at 65.38%. So I think it's important that we have this appreciation. We are moving in the right direction. We had made the promise to the country that we are going to experience short-term pain. You remember when we stood before the country experiencing bout of load shedding. We know what we are doing. The team is focused on ensuring that there's maintenance on these units that have been very problematic, complicit in giving us load shedding. They require time. And the most of the country very patient. They believed in us, and we're happy to say that we're delivering against the promise that we had given to you. And in fact, in some instances, we're delivering more than what we had promised. And then the other point I want to raise is how have we used the pickers? So this is when we ban diesel to ensure that we are able to support the grid. The load factor on the diesel reached about 5.99% this week, which is greater than the same period last year. And in rand value terms, we spent over 5 billion rand. So I really want to put this into context because this is what is in the general public. We use the pickers when we are experiencing difficulty from the rest of the fleet to support or meet the expectation of the demand that is placed on the grid. So the whole fleet of ESCOM is designed that you have, if you like, substitutes. When you have difficulty, there's a player, if I were to use the metaphor of football, there's a player that is injured, you still want to have 11 players on the field. So we call on that substitute to come and support the team. And this is what we've been doing. Yes, it is not a secret that we experienced significant challenges at the beginning of the financial year, April. We relied more and more on the diesel to be able to support us. And this diesel was able to support us because it's meant to support us during of difficulty. Of course, the budget for the diesel is about financially, I think it's about 12 billion or so, whereas about 5 billion of that. Then the next question you'll ask, but it's at the beginning of the financial year, you have spent close to over 40% of your annual allocation. It is because it is during winter when the intensity of the demand reaches the peak, and that's when we are likely going to experience challenges if some units fail because we don't have the headroom for us to be able to absorb those failures of the units. What do? We then call on our ACE card, which is the pickers to come and help us. So they're designed to do that. Just to give you a context, for the period of 1 April to 31 August in 2023, just that period, we used about 14.8 billion rand. And I'm saying to you now that for now, we used 5.8 billion rand. And it's also true that last year, during this period, we spent 3.6 billion rand because the system, the units that were meant to returned on time last year. It's something that we fixed and we have gone back to the performance that we are expecting. So the point I'm making to the general public is the following. When we ban diesel, we are meant to ban it because the system is under strain. And I'm further saying to the whole country that the system has recovered. You can see the EAF. And in fact, there are periods in the week where we have to put the machines in cold reserve. Cold reserve means we are generating more than what the demand is, and to protect the grid, we must pull back some of the machines. We are in that situation. It's a better situation to be in when you are generating more than what the demand is. What that says is that we are now created the sufficient space and headroom for the economy to grow on the back of this performance. And I really want to congratulate Mr. Marokan and the team for the exceptional work that they were doing. We are marching and we are going to get out of the woods. How have we got here? It should not be lost on us that we are coming from lows of the EAF sitting at about 49% of performance. And I just said to you that the average for the past week, 65.85%. And in fact, we had days where we reached about 70%. A remarkable improvement. But this is not a stroke of luck. It's because of the meticulous, calculated, and deliberate orchestration of the strategy that we have set in place. So what did we do? We made sure that we are able to set up enabling structures to support this recovery. So first, there must be a plan in place, and then you put the structures to support that plan. And the Energy Action Plan, as announced by the President, had 5 outcomes. Outcome number 1 was to say fix ESCOM. So in responding to that outcome number 1, ESCOM then introduced a generation recovery plan. So the point I'm making is that there is value, the utility of investing in a plan that meets the expectations of what our objectives are, and then you are able to resource that plan to ensure that we are able to achieve the kind of result. And then we said for us to get to where we want to, although we're in the midst of load shedding, there were stations that were performing well. And we said as a minimum, protect the performance of these stations. Because if they were to deteriorate and experience the kind of difficulties that are experienced by other stations, the situation will be worse. So ensure that you maintain performance at those stations. What are those stations? Midupile, Thabo, and Matimba. So those are flagship stations from an EAF point of view. They are the ones that did the heavy lifting. When everyone around them, that is the stations, were finding great levels of difficulty, were choking from a performance point of view, they carried the country, they carried the nation. And then we said for us to get out of this situation, which are these stations that are complicit in the most disproportionate fashion to load shedding. So these are the ones that accounted for 70% of the losses that we experienced. So these are the ones that plunged us into the situation shedding, and then we prioritize them. We say Tutuka, Duva, Maju, Kendall, Anot, and Krill. We need to ensure that we get them right. And I really want to say thank you to Mr. Ngumalo, who is the head of generation, of course, led by the board, by the group CE. We invested in that. And then we got the financial support from the South African taxpayer to say we are investing. I'm making the deliberate point that is the South African taxpayer through the fiscus that is, of course, led the National Treasury Minister Kodongwa, and then gave us the kind of support that is required. And what is the reward we want to give to the country is to ensure that the lights are on, one, is to ensure that the ESCOM gets back to profitability because we owe the country that. The third one is to make sure that this electricity is affordable. But the affordability is a question. ESCOM is a big part of that, but as a ministry, we're going to address that. Because, yes, indeed, we don't have load shedding, but there are many people in many parts of the country that are experiencing load reduction. So that's a downstream isolated capacity constraint such that the infrastructure at the level of distribution and reticulation is not sufficient to provide for the demand that is placed on that infrastructure. Like I said to the country, we're at the final stages of how we are going to resolve load reduction. And remember, we have a template on how we address load shedding. We know that part of that template is to make sure that there's a plan that is financed and resourced. And that's why I said to the country, give me that time. We'll come back. We understand the agency. And in fact, we're just putting final touches, even by yesterday, to ensure that we are coming back to the country. Now we are addressing the new frontier, load reduction, in the same manner that we've been keeping the country abreast in how we're resolving load shedding. I'll come back to load reduction. We'll remain accountable, working with municipalities and other players going forward. And then we're able to execute the Quebec unit number 1 outage to ensure the extension of a license. And that's the work that the team has done. On all of those priority areas in terms of our plan, we have scored above 80%. So it's green, 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 and that's why the lights are on. But our point was not to end at addressing load shedding. It's to ensure that going into the future, the country is not plunged into darkness. So what are some of the things that we are doing? Is to ensure that there's a step up. Remember, I said we moved from 49% of EAF. We want to now stabilize at the EAF of 65%. And I just told you that in the past 2 weeks or so, we're averaging there. We want to keep it that before we do the next step move. What is it that will keep us at 65%? We're going to execute the Quebec unit number 1. We're going to ensure that we sustain the performance of this well-performing power station. In that new category of performance now is Kusile. And thanks to the leadership of Kusile, is here. He was able to retain unit number 1, 2, and 3. We have kept to the promise we have given to the country and the Minister of Environment. Now Kusile is out of that list of units that were in ICU, it is performing. So we need to ensure that now we must address the skills gap. We can't rely on outside parties to come and help us to perform what is in fact the minimum function that is expected of us. The core function of ESCOM is to keep these machines running. So you need the skills that are necessary to be able to support that enterprise of ensuring that we are able to keep the machines running. So there's a reinvestment in the skills, our own skills internally, take them up a different notch, and also accepting that the configuration of the energy mix is changing. There's more and more renewables that are coming on stream. ESCOM is going to participate in new generation capacity on the renewables. We'll come and share that with you. ESCOM is not a spectator. ESCOM is not just going to the NTCSA, just buying and buying. ESCOM is going to participate because the rules are clear on new generation. who must participate. There is nothing in the amendment that stops Mr. Marokane and ESCOM from participating, and we want ESCOM to participate. And that's why those skills are very important. We must address outage slips. I must say to the country, this is one area where we are not doing well. Outage slips means the following: that we take the machine out, we have planned to take it out, and then we say, I'm taking it out for a duration of a month, I'm going to return it after a month. So if I take it out today, 13th of August, I promise that I'll return it by the 13th of September. The expectation is that because we have planned it in advance, the spare parts must be available. The skills that are required to remove the old parts and install the spare parts are available. Everything is in place. What we have seen is that we are not keeping to that promise. If come 13th of September, the machine doesn't come back, and we have calculated that that machine will come back when those megawatts don't come into place. It places the system under strain, and then we must spend the diesel. And that's why it's important that we are going to ensure that we address that. So that's what we have been doing to get to this 65%. But our objective is not 65%. Our objective is go to be 70% and above. What will it take for us to be there? We said we must return Medupi unit number 4. Medupi unit number 4 is back. Of course, it's not in commercial operation. It's a technical issue. Of course, it's back. They do the testing. They'll take it out, return it, so that it must pass all the tests. Once it's passed all the tests, it moves from one division, it goes into commercial operation. So we must get it into commercial operation. Although we benefit from the megawatt, but technically we want to get it into commercial operation, including Kusile unit number 5, the synchronization of Kusile unit number 6. We continue to focus on the skills. There will not be a point where we say we have sufficient skills. We'll continue to improve, keeping up with the technology going into the future. And then the long-term extension of life of Kusile Kubek unit. So Kubek unit number 1, we're now working on unit number 2. And once we get those in place, and Mr. Marokan and the team work on new generation capacity, because we know that by 2030, there's some megawatts that must come out as part of reducing the emissions. We must replace those megawatts. So it's important that the ESCOM must move with speed to address those. So I want to make the point. Our ambition is not 65%. Our ambition is 70% and above. So that's the point. And in so doing, we're going to oil the machinery of the South African economy, make sure that the smelters, the furnaces, they get to be restarted, people are into jobs, increase capacity utilization, reliability of supply, as we resolve the issues of the cost of electricity, and then the South African economy will be back on its feet. Here's just an illustration. You can see the trend line, 2023, the losses with regards to the megawatts that they were not in operation, were out as a result of machines failing. We peaked at about 18,000 megawatts. And today, as I speak to you, we're averaging about 10,800 megawatts. So that's exceptional performance. What that means is that Mr. Marokan and the team have gotten back 7,000 megawatts. The situation of today compared to 2023 was 7,000 megawatts to the good, and thanks to Mr. Marokan. And that's why when I make the point all the time, we are within touching distance of resolving load shedding. I'll come back. I'm sure the rest of the country wants to hear me to say load shedding is fully behind us. I can tell you us very, very close to that. We'll be the first ones to share that with you. You can see the numbers with regards to the EA. are going up, and we are confident of maintaining those numbers. So I did make the point about we have retained Kusile 1, 2, 3 in terms of us meeting the emissions parameters. Quebec unit number 1, the extension of life, and then the other station. You remember I said there were stations that were complicit. That one of those exceptional performers is Tutuka. So we've gotten back unit 1, additional 1,500 megawatt. That's exceptional. So now we take them, that station from an ICU, it's in a general ward, now it will walk it on its own, and then it starts running. When it starts running, the lights will just be on and on and on. But the point is that when they are on, the lights must be affordable. That's the next question that is confronting us. And you know that in the immediate future, extension of Quebec unit number 2, we really want nuclear to perform the function of base load. Is clean, is reliable, is efficient from an operational efficiency point of view. We know that it's one of the cheapest sources of electricity when it's operational. And of course, that's the movement that we're making. So I want to say to the rest of the country, we're in a good space. We're moving in the right direction. We made the promise that we are going to address this situation. We have made the promise that we are confident of our technical ability to resolve what many thought was an intractable challenge. We are within that touching distance. So we are saying that the next phase that we are addressing, load reduction and the cost of electricity. And as I conclude, I want to say that we'll continue with these initiatives that got us here. So what we have done is to design a template for the country for ailing SOEs that are finding it difficult to come out of a difficult situation. We have designed a template in the electricity space. That template can be exported to other parts of the SOEs. Like I said, we'll reduce the number of trips because those are the ones that makes us rely more and more on burning diesel. Once we resolve the number of trips, we'll be fine. And that has to do with the investment we are making on the skills, the investment we are making on our planning regime, the investment we are making on execution of planned outages. And that's the skills now that Mr. Marukan and the team are working on. And I'm confident that they are going to do it right. So we're going to work much closer with the original equipment manufacturers because they know the performance of these machines. They know the parameters within which these machines must perform at. And that's why we're bringing them closer to be at the table when we execute this outage. We must address the issues of contract management and also assurance. The issues of technology and artificial intelligence must be embedded in the work that we are doing. So there must be some dynamic engineering exercise, computational skills that are going to help us to imagine the kind of generation that we'll have and what must be the configuration of the type of demand we'll have and what must be the configuration of generation. And we are going to use the latest tools. And that's why Mr. Marukan and the team are investing in that. And then we're going to execute on strategic project. I did say that Quebec unit number 2, important, the reductions of the emissions. It's a quest that we have set for ourselves. It's not primarily about the commitments we made to international bodies. We are not resolving the issues of emissions because we want to please the world. We are doing that because it's right to do so. We must protect the lives and the livelihoods of people within the immediate proximity of the footprint of the power station. We got an obligation to play our role in ensuring that contributing to the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. Not because of the kind of glory we want on the international arena, but as South Africans, we think that's the right way to go without keeping the lights off. The technologies there, Mr. Marukan will execute against that. And then there must be investment in people and people and people. That's our strategic resource. There is no resource much greater than the people. And we are reconfiguring the mindset. Their projection and outlook must be such that there's an appreciation for them to understand that the ESCOM is a key pillar of the South African economy. Of course, they are in a bubble, in a power station, focus on instrumentation, focus on the rest of plant, but they must have a bigger picture of what ESCOM represents. And when we go to visit the power station, that's why what I get to convey myself and Mr. Marukan, the role and place of ESCOM in South Africa recovery, its economy, in getting people into jobs, because we are complicit in contributing to the unemployment lines, because the small businesses in the townships could not operate because the lights were off. They didn't have the capital to invest in uninterrupted power supply, generators and the like. Even those who got generators, diesel very expensive. So we owe it to the country to keep the lights on. They must be affordable, and of course it must be reliable. And I'm confident that we are on our way to getting there. So I want to say to the rest of the country that we're on a good betting pitch, to use the metaphor of cricket. So we want to average 70% as a better. So that's an extraordinary performance. Those who follow cricket, you know that a better that they average 70%, having played more than 50 test matches, that's at a different level. We want to be in that. We want to be permanently in the Champions League, just to use the metaphor of football. Very few teams in the country, but we want to be there. We want to be in that league. When we are in that league, the country performs. When we're in that league, the economy grows. And of course, like I said to those who are watching, I'm coming back on load reduction. Those who are watching, I'm coming back on the issues of affordability. We are delivering on this. We're confident we'll deliver on the rest, because we don't doubt our technical ability to resolve this challenge. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister, for the consistent and transparent key updates and detail on the state of our electricity systems through and through, as we navigate through the various junctures of South Africa's journey towards energy security. Colleagues, the Minister and the panel in front of us, ESCOM executives here, are ready to take questions for your further clarity and insight. By a show of hands, we'll start with questions in the room, and then we'll also take questions online. I see Antoinette, 2, 3. Okay, so we've got 4 questions. In that order, we'll start with you, Antoinette, and we'll come to the side of the room. Thanks.
I've got 3 questions. The first one is, when do you expect the IRP to serve before the cabinet? And then, I don't know whether my colleague can assist me. I've asked ESCOM how many distribution agency agreements have been signed with municipalities. It hasn't responded to me within 3 weeks, so I don't know whether there's a big secret about that number. Maybe they can assist me. How many distribution agency agreements have been formally signed with municipalities? And then to the minister also, why do you think it's necessary for ESCOM to create renewable generation capacity when the private sector can do it adequately? Is that not venturing into a space where ESCOM doesn't really need to be?
Thanks, Antoinette. Batavi, there's a question here.
I wanted to find out if you very talk about the integration of the affordability part of the competition. And ESCOM is involved in working with countries regarding taking licenses, I'd like to explain. And is it because of what? And because it's believe that it's something that I need to, and you issued a statement and continue with countries is what happened with that.
Katla.
Good morning, Minister. It's Kgosientsho here from the SABC. Mine is on municipalities. Your work with municipalities, where we find ourselves. The last time there was a dispute with the city of Johannesburg around the monies owed to ESCOM. That has been resolved. What have been your experiences and with other municipalities as well in terms of the debt and the monies owed to ESCOM? And also the issue of illegal connections as we, we're navigating the winter season. How much of that presents itself as a threat to the progress as you try to keep the lights on? And would there be a plan or some sort of a strategy to tackle the issue of illegal connections going forward so don't take away from the work that you can do?
Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Ramokgopa here from Region Africa. I just want to touch on what my colleague mentioned earlier in regards to some of those trading licenses, specifically that case. Looking at it, really just wanted to know, have you spoken to ESCOM about it? And do you believe they will drop this case? And are you not also worried of what kind of precedent this could set going forward, specifically in regards to those license companies or those fund companies?
Thank you for all the questions. Do we have questions online?
No questions online.
Okay, thank you. We'll get response.
I was just saying, thank you very much for the questions. I was just whispering to the group CEO that all of these questions are directed to me. It's testimony to the fact that the lights are on. Otherwise, you'll have a lot of questions because we are transitioning now. So you can see the type of questions that we are asking. It's about the future electricity industry, and I welcome that. I want to start with a question raised by Dimakatso and Veronica with regards to the trading licenses. So let me start here. Government initiated the reforms, and they were led at the highest level by President Ramaphosa. And the reforms was to ensure that we de-risk the concentration of generation that sits with one entity called ESCOM in this regard, and that we must introduce additional players in the space to ensure that there are choice options, but also, as Veronica was making the point, to increase competition. And with competition, there's going to be greater levels of investment in R&D and then improving of the skills. But for the consumer, ultimately the net result is that we're going to cap the runaway tariff increases, and we will get to a point where it plateaus. And in fact, there might be a cliff in relation to the electricity prices. By a cliff, I mean there could be a period where in constant numbers, they are coming down, the electricity prices. So we introduced those. And as part of that package of the reforms, we said that we are going to unbundle ESCOM, have the NTCSA, and it is within that framework that the NTCSA received the trading license. So let's not forget that the NTCSA is also a beneficiary of this. So the long and short of the point I'm making is that the reform agenda is irreversible. So we're proceeding with the reform agenda. And then because this is a nascent space, we are starting, none of us have been in this space before. There's naturally going to be friction, interpretation, misinterpretation of what this reform means. There's going to be conversations and in some instances disagreement on the pace of these reforms. The issue whether the regulator is capacitated enough to be able to manage and oversee these reforms. Is this monopoly that is ESCOM ready to relinquish that monopoly and accept that there are new players? And what the ESCOM team had raised was that we are not opposed to the reforms, but what we want is clarity with regards to the rules. There was an issue we're grappling with grid access rules, and we must clarify also the rules on trading licenses. Another issue we're grappling with grid access rules, and we must clarify also the rules on trading licenses. NERSA then initiated the process of reviewing, of coming up with the rules. The initial timeline was that they will do that within 12 months. And I asked NESA that the pressure is such that we need to conclude those rules as soon as possible. And NERSA has agreed that we'll truncate that to 3 months without compromising the quality of the input and what the rules will look like. And in that context, I said to ESCOM, it's not advisable that you go to the courts. So don't burden the judges